We've been doing this. We get a list of different position groups of some of the top players expected to be drafted at those positions. And Dave's been going through and taking a look at the film and breaking down each of these guys. And you took a look at a couple of guards, which is, I would say, certainly still a need, if even for depth at this point. We don't know what's his name, Lincoln Tomlinson. Is that his last name?
Oh, Laken Tomlinson?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They signed him. They signed a couple of other guys that, I mean, nobody that has a name that you're that familiar with, but one-year deal guys. You've got Bradford from last year. So I don't know if they feel like they're set, but you got a couple guys you looked at here that could play a part potentially.
Yeah, and could possibly be, that 16th pick. Now, I got Graham Barton from Duke, Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon. But the reason why I say maybe, picked in the first round is because of Troy Fautanu from UW. So, and he's fantastic. But, the Graham Barton I looked at, and these guys are all, they're actually Jackson Powers Johnson at Oregon. He actually played center, and he played some guard a little bit. But, man, I didn't see Graham Barton playing guard at all, but that's kind of what it's mostly that he's been playing tackle in college. And but he's being evaluated kind of as an interior guy. But he's from Duke. Projection is round 1, 6'5", 315, big dude. Was our guy Baldinger, Baldy. He said he thinks he's going to go to the Steelers with the number 20 pick. And I put in there he's got kind of short arms and not the biggest hands in the world, which holding in the NFL is legal. But when he latches onto you, man, he is just pile driving people, and that's where I love that about this position group, because you saw a lot of like pancakes and guys just getting the crap beat out of them. These guys are all just maulers. The other guy, Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, 6'3", 328. The combine, he had 30 reps on his bench. Here's what I wrote in there, though. He had an 8-foot, 8-inch broad jump. I think I might have beaten him 2 years ago when we did the media combine.
He also is carrying how much more weight?
That doesn't matter. That's like Danny. Remember, Danny used to always say, "Oh, that's a big ankle." He sprained his ankle. Like that's no. You should be able to explode. It's not very explosive. I mean, most guys you see like 10 feet or whatever. But when you watch him play, the other thing about him, he's got kind of an unorthodox way of running. But he just blasts people. I mean, you saw more pancakes from this guy than anybody else that I looked at anyway. And so kid out of Oregon can play center and guard. The only thing I would say, though, is he needs to come under control a little bit. In the open field, he'll hunt guys up and, just crush them. But there's lots of times where I feel like he's going to get juked, and, he needs to come under control. He kind of runs high and kind of takes short little steps, but he can move. And, so he looks like a guy that, could possibly be. I don't think he's projected to be in the first round. I haven't seen any mock drafts where he was, but I'm sure with the 5 million of them, there's one out there. Yeah.
So you took a look at him, and then...
Yeah, I looked at Barton, I looked at Powers Johnson, and then you watch Troy Fautanu, and it's just totally different class.
You think that was going to be my question? How big of a gap is there between the first two and Fautanu?
Huge.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, to me, he's got to be the best guard candidate because he played tackle, at University of Washington, but. And I wrote, hey, if Penix or Bowers, the tight end from Georgia, aren't there, I think the Seahawks should draft him because he's as good of an athlete that I've ever seen at offensive line. So amazing, and I think he was on the morning show, and they were talking about how he's a little bit, he's a nice guy off the field, but man, when he gets on the field, he just flips a switch.
So I asked you this before. But I'll ask you one more time because we're getting close to the draft. And you've got in here under Fautanu, if Penix or Bowers is not there, Seahawks should draft him. The end.
Yeah.
Let's pretend all three are there at 16. What's your pecking order? Like I would go with Penix first, and if he's not there and it's just Bowers and Fautanu, I would go with Bowers. I'd go with What's the pecking order if all three are there?
Well, I think you just named it. So it goes for me, Penix, because if you can solve a quarterback problem, it's it's rare. I mean, how many people are set at quarterback and they're absolutely 100% sure that this is their guy for the next 5 to 7 years?
We just talked about 4 teams of the 5 that drafted quarterbacks in 2021 that thought they were set, and now you fast forward, they're not.
Yeah, well, and I would say that the Seahawks probably fall into that category, depending on what you feel about Geno Smith. But, Geno's getting on in age. And so, yeah, I just think that position, if you hit a home run on that, it ends up being, a Justin Herbert instead of a Zach Wilson. Yeah, you're set. So I just always prioritize that, because just by virtue of the fact that maybe a third of the teams in the NFL are entirely confident with the quarterback that they have. So Penix to me. Then, I have to say Bowers is probably second. And then, go to Troy Fautano, because he has an amazing ability to, and he did something, I showed it to Lefko, I've never seen before, where he was blocking a guy and he got past him. He spun all the way around the other way and blocked him. Like, he did it so quickly because his feet are so good. The other thing I would say about him is whatever he's doing with his upper body, where he's punching and slapping people's hands down, his lower half, it's almost like his lower half is in a separate entity because it
like they're 2 separate bodies.
It's like his feet are never affected by him. He doesn't lunge and things like that, but when he's like popping a guy or slapping his hands off, his lower half is still, and it's always in good position. His feet are always moving. Reminds me of Walter Jones.